Sunday morning, 100-kilometer race. Perfect weather, light wind, clear sky. The liberation happens at 8 a.m. 300 birds from 15 lofts are released together. They circle briefly, orient, and head toward home. The race has begun. Your birds are among them. You've trained well. The birds are healthy, well-fed, in excellent condition. You're confident they'll place well. You drive home and wait at the loft. Based on distance and expected velocity, birds should start arriving around 10:15 to 10:30. 10:20. The first bird arrives at your neighbor's loft 3 houses down. You hear his clock register. 10:22. Another bird at a different neighbor's loft. 10:24. Multiple birds arriving at other lofts. Your radio confirms birds are clocking across the club, but none of yours yet. 10:28. Your first bird arrives. Good time, but already 8 minutes behind the first arrivals. It clocks. You keep waiting. 10:32. Second bird. 10:35. Third bird. 10:40. Fourth bird. By the time your team has finished arriving, you're sitting in positions 15 through 35 out of 50 entries. Not terrible. Respectable middle-of-pack finish. But disappointing because you know your birds are capable of better. You analyze the race. Your bird's average velocity was good. From the moment they oriented after liberation to arrival at home, they flew at competitive speed. The problem wasn't the bulk of the race. The problem was the first few minutes after liberation. Your birds took longer to orient, longer to commit to a direction, longer to build up to cruising speed. While other birds were already flying at full speed toward home 2 minutes after liberation, your birds were still circling and accelerating. Those lost 2 to 3 minutes in the race start cost you 20 positions. This scenario is extremely common in short-distance racing. The birds that dominate short races aren't necessarily the ones with best endurance or navigation over hours of flying. They are the birds with explosive power, the ability to orient instantly, accelerate rapidly, and reach maximum velocity within seconds of liberation. In long-distance races, those first few minutes matter less because they are a tiny fraction of total race time. In short-distance races, they are often the difference between winning and losing. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to tell you about something that's changed how I approach pigeon health and performance. I run another channel called Pigeon Healthy where I share natural herbal treatment methods that most fanciers have never heard of. We're talking about plants and natural remedies that have powerful healing and performance-enhancing effects on pigeons. Things like specific herb combinations that boost immunity, natural treatments for respiratory diseases, plants that improve digestion and recovery after races, and natural alternatives to chemical medications. We cover pigeon diseases you might be struggling with right now: canker, respiratory infections, coccidiosis, worms, and show you exactly how to treat them using natural methods that actually work. No guessing. No expensive medications with side effects. Just proven herbal protocols used by top European lofts. If you're serious about keeping your birds healthy naturally and improving their performance without chemicals, go subscribe to Pigeon Healthy right now. The knowledge that could save you birds, save you money, and give you an edge your competition doesn't have. Now, let's get into today's topic. Louis van der Velde's quote: "In short races, the first 120 seconds decide the winner," reflects this reality. 2 minutes, 120 seconds, determines race outcome in sprints and short middle-distance races more than any other factor. The bird that accelerates fastest, orients quickest, and commits to home direction earliest typically wins or places highest. Most fanciers train for endurance and general fitness. They do weekly tosses building up to race distance. They manage feeding and health carefully. All of this is necessary and important, but it doesn't specifically develop explosive power, the rapid acceleration and high-intensity output needed for the first critical minutes of short races. Birds trained for general fitness perform adequately but not optimally in sprint starts. Developing explosive power requires specific targeted training that most fanciers never implement because they don't understand what it is or how to train it. Today we're covering 3 specific training techniques that build explosive power in racing pigeons. These techniques are used by fanciers who consistently dominate short-distance racing. They are not complicated. They don't require expensive equipment or facilities, but they do require understanding the physiology of explosive power and implementing specific protocols that target that physiological quality. Let's start with understanding what explosive power means physiologically and why it matters specifically for short-distance racing. Explosive power is the ability to generate maximum force and speed very rapidly from resting state. It's different from sustained power, which is ability to maintain high output over extended time. In racing context, sustained power is what carries birds through hours of flying at high velocity. Explosive power is what gets them from resting or circling immediately post-liberation to maximum velocity in the shortest possible time. Both are important, but they're trained differently and they rely on different physiological systems. Explosive power depends primarily on fast-twitch muscle fibers, anaerobic energy systems, and neuromuscular coordination. Fast-twitch muscle fibers contract rapidly and powerfully but fatigue quickly. They are used for brief, intense efforts. Slow-twitch fibers contract more slowly but can work for long periods without fatigue. They are used for endurance efforts. Birds, like humans, have both fiber types in their flight muscles. The ratio varies by genetics and by training. Birds trained primarily with long, slow-distance work develop more slow-twitch fibers and better aerobic endurance. Birds trained with short, intense bursts develop more fast-twitch fibers and better explosive power. For short-distance racing, you need both. You need endurance to fly the distance at high speed. That's slow-twitch and aerobic. But you also need explosive power to accelerate rapidly at the start. That's fast-twitch and anaerobic. Most training focuses on endurance. Very little training focuses on explosive power. This creates birds that lack the race start speed to compete optimally in short races. Now let's discuss the 3 specific training techniques that develop explosive power. Technique 1. Hill descent release training. This technique builds wing strength and explosive takeoff power through releasing birds from elevated positions that force rapid, powerful wing strokes to achieve flight. The protocol is simple but requires specific setup. Find a location with elevation change, a hill, embankment, building roof, any place where you can release bird from 2 to 5 meters above ground level. The elevation should be enough that birds must work to achieve flight, but not so high that it's dangerous or that birds simply glide down without effort. 2 to 3 meters is ideal for most situations. This is roughly the height of a single-story building or moderate hill slope. At this height, birds must make several powerful wing strokes to achieve stable flight. They can't just step off and glide. They have to work. The training protocol is release birds from this elevated position and let them fly home from whatever distance you've set up. The distance can be short, even 500 meters to 1 kilometer. The point isn't navigation training, though birds do navigate home. The point is the explosive effort required at the moment of release. When bird is released from elevated position, it drops initially, maybe half a meter to 1 meter, while orienting and beginning wing strokes. Then it must generate rapid, powerful strokes to arrest the descent and convert to level flight or climbing flight. This requires maximum effort from flight muscles, activating fast-twitch fibers, and training explosive power generation. Compare this to normal ground-level release where birds can use initial running steps to build speed gradually before achieving flight. Ground release allows relatively gradual acceleration. Elevated release forces rapid acceleration from the first wing stroke. Implement hill descent training once or twice per week during the month before short-distance racing season. Not every training toss needs to be from elevation. Mix elevated releases with normal ground releases. The elevated releases specifically target explosive power. The ground releases maintain normal navigation and endurance training. Safety considerations. The elevation must be safe. Not so high that bird could be injured if they don't achieve flight properly. Not above obstacles that could injure birds if they fall. Trees, buildings, sharp objects. Choose locations carefully. 2 to 3 meters above clear ground or water is ideal. Also, don't implement elevated releases with very young birds that aren't yet strong flyers. This technique is for birds that already have solid flight ability and are preparing for racing. Young birds in initial training don't need this technique and might be stressed or injured by it. The physiological effect of hill descent training is strengthening of the fast-twitch muscle fibers that generate explosive power. Repeated efforts where birds must generate maximum power from first wing stroke train these fibers to activate quickly and powerfully. Over weeks of this training, birds develop noticeably faster takeoff and acceleration capability. You can observe this improvement. Birds that initially struggle with elevated releases, dropping significantly before achieving stable flight, rapidly improve. After several sessions, they barely drop at all, generating enough power from the first few strokes to achieve immediate stable flight. This improved explosive capability transfers directly to race starts where rapid acceleration from liberation determines early race position. Technique 2. Short burst interval training through very short rapid tosses in quick succession. This technique builds acceleration capability and trains birds to rapidly shift from resting to maximum effort and back. The protocol requires specific setup and timing. Choose a very short distance for training, 500 meters to 1 kilometer maximum. The distance needs to be short enough that bird complete the flight in 5 to 10 minutes maximum. This is not endurance training. This is burst training. Execute the first toss from this short distance. Birds fly home, land, enter trap. Allow birds to rest for 30 to 60 minutes. Then catch the same birds and execute a second toss from the same or similar short distance. Birds fly home again. Rest another 30 to 60 minutes. Execute a third toss if bird's condition allows. The sequence is rapid burst flight, brief rest, rapid burst flight, brief rest, potentially third burst flight. Each flight is maximum effort because birds fly at highest speed they can sustain for the short distance. The brief rest between flights is enough to partially recover, but not enough for complete recovery. This creates progressive fatigue that forces muscles to adapt. Why does this work? In normal training where birds fly home once and then rest for days before next toss, the training stimulus is moderate. The effort is real, but recovery is complete before next effort. In interval training where efforts are separated by brief incomplete recovery, the training stimulus is much higher. Muscles must perform repeated maximum efforts while partially fatigued. This creates adaptation that wouldn't occur with single efforts and full recovery. The specific adaptation from short burst interval training is improved anaerobic capacity and faster acceleration. Birds learn to generate maximum power rapidly, sustain it for the duration of the short flight, then recover enough to do it again. This mimics the demands of race starts where birds must accelerate rapidly at liberation, maintain high speed for the initial critical minutes while navigating, then settle into sustained pace for the remainder of the race. Implement short burst interval training once per week during the 4 to 6 weeks before short distance racing season. This is high intensity training that creates significant fatigue. Don't do it more frequently or you risk overtraining and reducing bird condition rather than improving it. Once per week provides enough stimulus to create adaptation while allowing adequate recovery. The protocol details. First toss should be when birds are fresh, morning after they've rested from previous training. 500 meters to 1 kilometer. Direction doesn't matter much for this training, though staying consistent with race direction is fine. Birds fly home at maximum speed. When they arrive, provide normal recovery, water, and light feed. Let them rest in loft for 30 to 60 minutes. Second toss from same distance. Birds will be slightly fatigued from first effort, so they might be marginally slower, but they should still perform well. This second effort while partially fatigued is a key training stimulus. After second toss, Again, provide recovery and rest for 30 to 60 minutes. Third toss is optional and depends on bird's condition and response to first two tosses. If birds seem excessively tired after second toss, stop there. If they seem to be handling the protocol well, third toss can be added. Don't exceed 3 tosses in one session. More than that creates excessive fatigue that impairs rather than improves performance. After interval training session, birds should rest for several days before next training. This high-intensity protocol requires substantial recovery. Don't do interval training the day before a race or even 2 days before. Allow minimum 3 to 4 days recovery between interval training and racing. The observable effect of interval training is birds that accelerate faster after liberation and maintain higher speed in the first minutes of races. The improvement is measurable. Compare race velocities in the first 5 kilometers versus later kilometers. Birds with good explosive power show highest velocity in the first section. Birds lacking explosive power start slower and build to maximum velocity later. Technique 3. Strategic feeding to maximize muscle explosive capability through specific nutrients that support anaerobic power generation. This isn't general feeding strategy. This is specific race day preparation feeding targeted at explosive power. The key nutrients for explosive power are readily available energy in the form of glycogen in muscles and compounds that support rapid force generation and reduce muscle fatigue. 2 feeds that provide these nutrients optimally are flaxseed for its unique fatty acid profile and energy density, and peas for their protein and carbohydrate balance. Flaxseed, also called linseed, is rich in omega-3 fatty acids and provides concentrated energy. The omega-3 fatty acids have anti-inflammatory properties that reduce muscle inflammation and improve recovery. The energy density means small quantity of flaxseed provides substantial calories without filling the digestive system heavily. Peas provide high-quality protein for muscle function and complex carbohydrates that digest into glucose and store as muscle glycogen. Glycogen is the immediate energy source for explosive muscular effort. Adequate glycogen stores allow maximum power generation. Depleted glycogen limits power output. The strategic feeding protocol is 24 hours before race. Adjust feed mix to include elevated flaxseed and peas. Instead of normal racing mix, provide mix at approximately 30% peas, 15% flaxseed, and remainder lighter grains like wheat and barley. This feed mix is given evening before basketing day. Birds eat this mix, digesting it overnight and through the morning. The peas digest into amino acid for muscle support and glucose that stores as muscle glycogen. The flaxseed digests into fatty acids that reduce inflammation and provide energy. By race day, birds have maximized muscle glycogen stores and optimized muscle condition for explosive effort. Morning of race day, don't feed before basketing is discussed in 7-day conditioning protocol. The feeding was evening before. Morning feeding would create full crop during liberation, which impairs performance. The evening feeding provides nutrients that are processed overnight and ready for use on race day without creating digestive load during the race. This feeding strategy is specific to short-distance racing where explosive power in first minutes matters enormously. For long-distance racing, different feeding strategy prioritizing sustained energy release over many hours is more appropriate. For short races, burst energy matters most, and flaxseed pea combination delivers that. Some fanciers also add small amount of hemp seed, 5 to 10% of mix, in this pre-race feed. Hemp seed provides additional protein and beneficial fatty acids. This is optional enhancement, but can provide marginal additional benefit. The observable effect of this feeding strategy is birds that appear energetic and powerful at liberation, accelerating rapidly and maintaining high early race velocity. Compared to birds fed standard racing mix without the flaxseed pea optimization. The difference in early race power and speed is often noticeable. Now let's discuss how these three techniques integrate. You're not using just one. You're using all three as part of comprehensive short-distance race preparation. 4 to 6 weeks before first short-distance race, begin implementing hill descent training once per week. This builds baseline explosive power and fast-twitch muscle development. Continue this through the entire short-distance racing season. 3 to 4 weeks before first race, add short burst interval training once per week. This builds anaerobic capacity and acceleration capability. Don't do interval training and hill descent training on the same day or consecutive days. Space them with at least 3 to 4 days between to allow adequate recovery. Continue interval training through racing season, but never within 3 days of a race. Week before each short-distance race, implement the 7-day conditioning protocol discussed in previous video, with a modification of using the flaxseed pea feeding strategy 24 hours before race. This optimizes nutrition for explosive power while maintaining all the other race preparation elements. Race day. Birds arrive at liberation with developed explosive power from hill descent and interval training, optimize muscle glycogen and reduce inflammation from strategic feeding, and peak condition from 7-day protocol. They are ready to accelerate explosively at liberation and dominate the critical first minutes of the race. The combination of these three techniques creates compound effect that's greater than any single technique alone. Each technique addresses different aspects of explosive power. Together they create comprehensive development of sprint start capability. Now let's address common questions and concerns about these techniques. Question: won't hill descent training risk injury to birds? If implemented correctly with appropriate elevation and safe landing areas, risk is minimal. Don't use excessive elevation. 2 to 3 meters is ideal. Don't release above obstacles. Choose locations carefully. Birds adapt quickly and the technique becomes safe routine. Question: isn't interval training too stressful for birds? It is high-intensity training that creates fatigue. That's the point. The fatigue stimulus creates adaptation, but it must be implemented with adequate recovery, once per week maximum, with several days rest after each session. Monitor birds' condition. If they seem excessively tired or stressed, reduce frequency or intensity. But for healthy, well-conditioned birds, once weekly interval training is appropriate stress level. Question: won't the flaxseed pea feeding make birds too heavy? The feeding is evening before race day, not day of basketing. The nutrients are processed overnight. By race morning, when birds are basketed without feeding, the crops are light and the nutrients have been absorbed into muscles and bloodstream. Birds aren't heavy. They are optimized. Test this protocol in training before using in races to verify birds maintain proper weight. Question: do these techniques work for middle distance and long distance racing? Explosive power helps in any race for the liberation start, but it's less decisive in long races where sustained endurance over hours matters more than burst speed in first minutes. These techniques are optimized for short-distance racing. Sprint to approximately 200 kilometers. For longer racing, more emphasis on endurance training and sustained energy feeding is appropriate. Question: can you build explosive power without hill descent training if you don't have suitable elevation available? Yes. The interval training alone builds substantial explosive power. The hill descent enhances it further, but isn't absolutely required. If you can't access suitable elevation for hill training, focus on perfecting interval training protocol and feeding strategy. You'll still develop better explosive power than without any specific training. Now let's discuss measuring the effectiveness of these techniques. The primary measure is race performance, specifically in the first section of races. Track your bird positions at arrival and their velocities. Calculate velocity over first 10 to 20 kilometers if possible, and compare to velocity over later sections. Birds with good explosive power show highest velocity in first section, and then maintain or slightly reduce velocity later. Birds lacking explosive power show slower first section, and then build to higher velocity later sections. Also track overall race positions in short-distance races after implementing these techniques compared to before. If techniques are working, average position should improve, particularly in races under 200 kilometers where explosive start matters most. Observe bird behavior at loft flying and during training. Bird developing explosive power show quicker takeoffs, fast acceleration to cruising speed, more powerful flight appearance. These qualitative observations complement the quantitative race data. Now let's discuss the championship perspective. Fanciers who consistently dominate short-distance racing universally emphasize the importance of explosive starts and implement training that develops sprint power. Louis van der Velde's lofts were known for birds that accelerated rapidly after liberation and dominated the first minutes of races. This was an accident or genetics alone. His training included techniques specifically targeting explosive power. His birds were conditioned for sprint performance, not just general racing fitness. Joe Zone similarly emphasized powerful starts in short races. He understood that endurance training alone doesn't create sprint champions. Sprint champions require sprint-specific training that develops fast-twitch muscle power and anaerobic capacity. These championship fanciers achieve their dominance partly through superior birds, but also through superior training that developed every aspect of performance needed for their target race distances. They didn't train randomly or generically. They trained specifically for the demands of short-distance racing. Explosive power was central to those demands. You can implement the same specific targeted approach. You can train your bird for explosive starts instead of just general fitness. You can develop the sprint power that wins short races instead of hoping birds naturally have it. The three techniques are clear. Hill descent training for fast twitch muscle development and powerful takeoffs. Short burst interval training for anaerobic capacity and rapid acceleration. Strategic flaxseed pea feeding for muscle glycogen optimization and inflammation reduction. Implement all three systematically in the weeks before short-distance racing season. Continue through the season with appropriate recovery management. Watch your bird transform from middle-of-pack performers to front-of-pack competitors in sprint and short-middle distance races. The first 2 minutes won't be lost time anymore. They'll be gained time, the critical moments when your birds establish position that they maintain or improve through the rest of the race. Your birds have the endurance. Your general training has developed that. Now develop their explosive power. Give them the sprint capability to compete with the fastest starters. Turn those first 120 seconds from weakness into strength. Short-distance racing is won at the start. The bird that accelerates fastest, orients quickest, and reaches maximum velocity soonest typically wins. General fitness doesn't create that capability. Specific explosive power training creates it. Train specifically. Build explosive power. Dominate the race start. Win short-distance races. That's a path. The three techniques provide the way. Implement them. Perfect them, and watch your short-distance race results transform from respectable to exceptional. The first 2 minutes decide the winner. Make sure your birds win those first 2 minutes. That's how you win the race. That's how you become the fancier other people ask, how do your birds always start so fast? Now you know. Explosive power. Specific training. Systematic development. Build it in your birds. Use the three techniques, and dominate short-distance racing the way champions do, by winning the start and never looking back.